Hey, what's up? My name is Pietro, and today I want to talk about what I think is wrong with how they teach the subjunctive on YouTube. I'm talking about the Spanish subjunctive, okay? Now, before I say anything, I want to make it clear that I am not a native Spanish speaker, nor that I am a language teacher. Okay, I don't give private classes. I don't tutor anyone. I consider myself a lifelong serious student of the Spanish language. Okay, I love the language. I have decided to pursue it. I want to operate in the language. And I notice everybody has been having problems with the subjunctive. So I have just spent about 9 months studying the subjunctive, and I want to share with you, give you some feedback on my studies, okay? And at the same time, on what I've seen, okay? So, one of the issues that I have with how they teach the subjunctive on YouTube is generally it is taught in Spanish. I have watched roughly 30 videos on the subjunctive, and most of them are in Spanish. And I have a problem with that because even though students need to hear the language, be exposed to the language, a difficult topic such as the subjunctive, I think it should be taught in the mother's tongue of the student. In other words, if you're an English speaker and you're having difficulties understanding the subjunctive, I think it would be in your best interest to find someone who's an English speaker also and who understands the Spanish subjunctive very well that can break it down to you. Same thing if you're a Japanese student, find someone who's a Japanese that has who understands the subjunctive very well that can break it down to you. At least in the initial stages of your learning of the Spanish subjunctive, it would be best to have someone break it down to you. But on YouTube, most of the videos that I've watched, they are in Spanish, and the teacher uses the subjunctive to explain the subjunctive. What do I mean by that? As the teacher goes through the explanation of what the subjunctive is, they use the subjunctive also to explain the subjunctive, which doesn't make sense because if I'm trying to understand the subjunctive and you are using the subjunctive in part to explain the subjunctive, then it makes my job a little more difficult. You see what I'm saying? So I think at least in the first phase of the learning of the subjunctive, it should be taught in the mother's tongue of the student. The second issue that I have with the subjunctive is surface level explanation. What do I mean by that? Most people say, well, the subjunctive is used when there's doubt, when there's uncertainty. That is good, but it doesn't go deep enough because when people believe that the subjunctive is only used for hypothesis, doubt, uncertainty, things that are not real, then the student will get confused when they see something like that. I am glad you came to the party. Okay? Now, if you have to translate something like that, I am glad you came to the party. The translation to Spanish is me alegra que hayas venido a la fiesta. ¿Ok? Me alegra que hayas venido a la fiesta. Now, there's no uncertainty here. See, in English, we have, I am glad you came to the party. This is the past tense of the indicative mood in English. I'm glad you came to the party. But in Spanish, we end up with me alegra que hayas venido. So the past tense of the indicative mood in English became the subjunctive in Spanish. That will confuse an English speaking student. The student is going to say, well, where's the uncertainty here? You came to the party. I saw you at the party. We had a good time. And I'm glad you came to the party. There's no uncertainty here. There's no doubt here. Everything is clear. You did come to the party. Yet, Spanish uses the subjunctive que hayas venido to translate you came. You see? So, yes, it's important to say doubt, uncertainty, but we need to go deeper because it's not every time there's doubt and then you have the subjunctive. Sometimes there's no doubt. Everything is clear, and yet you use the subjunctive. And sometimes there may be some doubt. You don't use the subjunctive. There may be some doubt. If I say, I don't know if she's coming, I don't know if she's coming, we're not going to have subjunctive here. If I say, I don't know if she's coming, but the student will say, wait a minute, there's some doubt here. You say, you don't know if she's coming. That's right. I don't know if she's coming, and there's no subjunctive here. You see what I'm saying? So we need to go deeper than just saying, well, use the subjunctive for that, for hypothesis, for this, without any clear examples to back up what we're saying. The other issue that I have with the subjunctive is the structural differences that can exist between English and Spanish. Languages package thoughts sometimes different way. What do I mean by that? There's a certain way we might say something in English. That's not the way they say it in Spanish. I'm not talking about the words are different. I'm talking about the structure. Okay, let me show an example so you understand what I'm talking about. In English, okay, it would be perfect English to say, I want you to tell me the truth. Okay? That would be fine. I want you to tell me the truth. But guess what? In Spanish, they say, I want that you tell me the truth. And this makes a big difference when it's time to translate to Spanish. Okay? Because what's going on here, I want you to tell me the truth. You is the complement of want. You at the same time is the subject of to tell, an infinitive verb. Spanish will not allow an infinitive verb to have a subject. That's why they rearrange it to I want that you tell me the truth. Something else. In English, I can say, I wanted you, I wanted you to tell me the truth. Okay? Well, in Spanish, they don't say, I wanted you to tell me the truth. What they say in Spanish is, I wanted that you told me the truth. And that makes a very big difference when it's time to translate those structures to Spanish. So, an English speaker who's thinking in English, let's go back to I want you to tell me the truth. Okay? An English speaker might say, all right, I want you to tell me the truth. And they take a guess. They say, well, in Spanish it could be quiero que tú me decir la verdad. Or they might say, well, maybe it's quiero que tú decirme la verdad. You see, this is an English speaker trying to translate to Spanish, I want you to tell me the truth. So the English speaker, thinking in his language, he tried to translate this to either one of those. And no matter how he translated, it's not going to work. It's not going to make sense in Spanish because in Spanish, this structure does not exist. So you're translating from a structure that does not exist in Spanish. So no matter what you end up with, it's not going to be right. That's what I'm talking about, the structural differences between the two languages. Okay? And these have been ignored in most of the videos on the subjunctive that I've watched in on YouTube. Okay? Now, what's going to happen is, since most of the videos are in Spanish, the ones that I've watched, if the teacher doesn't know English, the teacher will notice that English speaking students tend to make those types of mistakes. Whenever they have structures like, I want you to come to my office, or I wanted you to come to my office, the teacher will notice that English speaking students always mess up on those structures. But since the teacher doesn't speak English, he or she will not know why English speaking students tend to have difficulties with those types of structures. So we cannot ignore the differences between the two languages on how they package ideas. That's why sometimes with the subjunctive, You need someone who understands the Spanish subjunctive very well and also understand your language and can break it down to you in your language, at least in the beginning. Okay? And finally, what I've seen is there are native English speakers that teach Spanish on YouTube and they talk about the subjunctive also. And they tend to repeat the same thing that everybody else say. Oh, the subjunctive is used for doubt, for hypothesis, for uncertainty, and then they give you a list of trigger words. There are certain words you need to watch for, like ojalá, or after para que, you will, you should expect the subjunctive. And then some people say, well, just practice Spanish long enough. Eventually you'll get it. Eventually you will feel it. Well, it doesn't work like that. There are specific conditions under which the Spanish language uses the subjunctive. Okay? And you need to understand the mechanism behind the language. Why Spanish uses the subjunctive here instead of the indicative. My suspicion is it has never been explained to us very well, and I'm gonna try to explain it a different way because I'm preparing a series on the subjunctive for you guys. If you're interested, I suggest that you subscribe to the channel and click on the notification bell so whenever we release a video, you can be notified because it's going to be a very interesting series. The subjunctive has been a headache for centuries for non-native Spanish speakers, and I want to contribute to the advancement of education, and I'm just gonna approach it a different way, and hopefully you will find it helpful. Okay. Once again, I am not a native Spanish speaker. I'm not a Spanish professor. I'm only a serious student. Okay. I love the Spanish language. I have decided to pursue it. I have decided to operate in it. And I believe that if you do the same thing, you and I eventually we will conquer the Spanish subjunctive. Okay? So thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.